This session we're going to talk about how to look at RPM and set that up for your vehicle. On the main screen where you can't go back anymore, you hit Race Setup, Vehicle, and from here you have a list of vehicles. So you want to choose the vehicle that you want to set the RPM for, hit Vehicle Settings, and on the screen here you'll see TAC in the upper left hand side. Hit TAC, and with the car running you're going to see the current RPM here. Max RPM, that is what the maximum RPM that is displayed on the TAC. So you can imagine at 7,000 RPMs, that's where the TAC bottoms out at. The red line is where the red lights turn on. The warning start is where the warning lights come on, the yellow lights, and the number of cylinders. So under max RPM, if you want to get fine detailed, you can click on this and actually adjust it to whatever RPM you want. Same goes for these as well. That way you can change it a little bit more fine-tuned, 6450 versus 6500, that kind of thing. Or you can use the slider. You'll notice that you can't slide past 6,000 because your warning is already there. So if you changed it to 4,000, for instance, then you can slide it down. So that's how that works. As far as number of cylinders, this can be obvious. So you have a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, and it can also vary depending on how it's hooked up to your vehicle. Some vehicles, if they have an ECU, particular electronic coil or electronic ignition, sometimes you want to change that to ECU 1, for instance, or 2 strokes, or different number of cylinders depending on the vehicle. So every vehicle is a little bit different. A great way to test this is to have the car running. You'll see the current RPM here if it's adjusted properly as far as number of cylinders, and then take the car RPM up to like 3,000 to 4,000 RPM. If all of a sudden it drops to 0 or changes dramatically and is incorrect, you may have the number of cylinders wrong. And another thing to check under the actual hardware, if you don't have any RPM displayed and you have everything hooked up properly, you want to make sure that power supplied to the TraqDash USB, if you have that, it says 12 volts required for charging on the label there. You want to supply 12 volts to that. You also, you may have to adjust it from electronic to coil, and you do that by actually popping open that little TraqDash USB box, and there's a micro switch within that to change from E to C, E being electronic, C being coil. You would need a fine, like a eyeglasses screwdriver or something very, very small to flip that micro switch in there, and there's actually a little piece of sort of tape on top of it. So, but if you have the RPMs displayed properly, you won't need to do that. But if you see 0 RPMs and everything's hooked up right, then you may need to adjust that. There's also information and help always available on the screen itself using the upper left hand side here. And once you get that set, you should be good to go, and you can back out and go racing, and everything will be set and give you your correct RPMs. Hope that helps.